Borderlands bombed harder at the box office than any number of grenades you could throw in the games. In an era of good game adaptations, how did it fail so hard?
Well, destiny awaits.
As of the making of this video, Borderlands has made only $8.8 million in the US, landing a dismal opening at 4th place at the domestic box office. Internationally, it's even worse. It scooped just $7.7 million overseas for a worldwide total debut of $16.5 million. This is an absolute disaster for a film that not only took 10+ years to make and features some A-list talent, but had a reported budget of approximately $145 million. A colorful action comedy based on a popular IP probably seemed like a slam dunk for Lionsgate in the current climate of video game adaptations. Opening in 4th place at the domestic box office, Borderlands was defeated by both Deadpool and Wolverine, and somewhat surprisingly, Lee Isaac Chung's Twisters. Though the legacy sequel starring Daisy Edgar Jones, Glenn Powell, and Anthony Ramos was a breakout hit when it first debuted in July, its staying power is nonetheless very impressive, a sign that audiences are craving blockbusters that don't involve superheroes.
Oh, she's perfect!
She's gorgeous!
So far, Twisters has made over $310 million worldwide and occupies a spot in the top 5 highest-grossing films of the year domestically. It's likely the film's distinct tone and PG-13 rating allowed it to maintain an audience, even as the relentlessly marketed and highly anticipated Deadpool and Wolverine began dominating theaters a week later. Speaking of the Marvel feature, it would have been unfair to expect Borderlands to outperform the Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman doubleheader, which has passed the $1 billion benchmark, but Borderlands not only failed to become the secondary blockbuster to the unstoppable Deadpool sequel, it made a fraction of what Twisters did, despite the two films having similar budgets. In addition to getting trounced by Twisters and Deadpool and Wolverine, Borderlands didn't even come close to touching It Ends With Us, an adaptation of the Colleen Hoover novel of the same name that has so far grossed more than $80 million worldwide against a reported budget of $25 million. At first glance, the success of Borderlands shouldn't have been impacted by a film seemingly targeting a very different audience and boasting a far less star-studded cast. However, a film like Borderlands might have only stood a chance at box office success with a completely clear runway. Perhaps Lionsgate felt that enough time would have passed for them to take the wind out of Twisters. If so, this was a deadly miscalculation that also underestimated the potential of It Ends With Us. However, they could and should have anticipated the breadth of the book's fanbase, which seemingly left almost no theatrical stragglers for Borderlands to entice. Borderlands needed to have virtually no competition to succeed because, to put it bluntly, it didn't have the critical buzz it needed to attract viewers. So far, it holds a damning score of 8% on Rotten Tomatoes, making the film one of the few releases this year to debut with a percent in the single digits. Among the aggregator sites, top critics 0% gave the film a fresh rating. On Metacritic, Borderlands holds a more qualitative score of 27 out of 100, with the site deeming the reviews generally unfavorable.
Feel free to applaud.
Why did Borderlands do so bad in reviews? Many critics found the film to be insulting, even offensive in terms of what the filmmakers and producers deemed worthy of the audience's attention, interest, and money. Writing for the Daily Beast, Nick Shager described Borderlands as, quote, so drearily routine and slapdash that even an AI would deem it too plagiaristic. Some may argue that these critics are reading too much into what is meant to be a fun video game movie, but general audiences aren't buying into it, and neither are the hardcore fans. If you're willing to wade into the audience reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, you'll find a bevy of unfiltered reviews written by franchise fans who are outraged. One reviewer writes, just an empty shell of the actual Borderlands world. Characters portrayed horribly, no humor lands, it's a straight-to-DVD product. Another took to the website to share that they had high hopes going into the film. I played all 3 games and was looking forward to this movie. Unfortunately, this movie is just bad. One thing is clear, even the most dedicated of Borderlands lovers found nothing to like here. Most fans reviewing the film have the same gripes about the muddled adaptation, which proved fatal. The Borderlands movie needed to be championed by the game's audience in order to succeed. Another tactic used to attract non-gamers to Borderlands was the casting of almost unanimously high-profile actors. In addition to Cate Blanchett, Kevin Hart, and Jamie Lee Curtis, Barbie and Ahsoka breakout Ariana Greenblatt appears as Tiny Tina. Jack Black voices the iconic robot Claptrap, with whom the Borderlands games are synonymous. However, some fans of the games were disappointed that producers didn't hire David Eddings or Jim Ferronda, who voiced the character in the original games. Either one of them could have stepped back into the role, likely for a fraction of Black's price. To make matters worse, the film's marketing failed to sell the audience on the cast leading up to the movie, with anxieties over casting announcements routinely cropping up on social media. Many fans pointed out that the cast as a whole was significantly older than they should have been, according to the game, and that Hart specifically seemed unconvincing as Roland. And on top of miscast actors, there were missing characters. Fans were shocked that Mordecai and Brick were missing from the movie. Like Fallout, Borderlands is a decades-old gaming franchise with meticulous lore and some beloved characters. So why did the Fallout TV series blow everyone away when Borderlands flopped hard? Fallout knew that non-gamers could be attracted to the unique world and tone of the games. The makers of the Borderlands movie, meanwhile, played it safe and paid the price. One of the most controversial decisions was to make Borderlands a PG-13 film, when the games feature the sort of profanity and gleefully gory violence that would require an R rating if adapted faithfully. This was presumably a departure made under the long-held assumption that PG-13 movies fare better financially, if only for the simple fact that unaccompanied minors aren't barred from buying tickets. Ironically, it seems that the PG-13 rating might have actually hurt Borderlands in terms of box office potential. As the Deadpool franchise has proven time and again, an R rating can help otherwise middle-of-the-road movies stand out from the crowd. Even Deadpool and Wolverine is rated R, the first Marvel Cinematic Universe movie to get this rating. By trying to attract a wider range of viewers, Borderlands only hindered itself. From the start of its marketing campaign, it was obvious that Borderlands wanted to channel the success of blockbuster action comedies like The Suicide Squad, Dungeons & Dragons, Honor Among Thieves, and Guardians of the Galaxy, the last of which arguably defined this specific flavor of action comedy for contemporary audiences. These films rely on an ensemble of colorful anti-heroes, with much of the comedy being mined from how inept they are at their jobs or how badly they misbehave according to normal heroic standards. Of course, this formula doesn't necessarily guarantee financial success, as Dungeons & Dragons found out the hard way. It was one of the biggest box office bombs of 2023, despite actually being a great movie. But if a film attempts to market itself in this fashion and doesn't deliver, failure is almost sure to follow. As entertainment consultant David A. Gross of Franchise Entertainment Research said of Borderlands in a Variety interview, "If an action comedy is going to work, it has to be funny, and almost no one thinks this picture is." Indeed, the lack of working jokes was brought up numerous times in negative write-ups on Rotten Tomatoes, both by critics and audience reviewers. One word that comes up in most reviews for Borderlands is script, usually following words such as flat and awful. IndieWire described it as brutally bad in its review, but why was the script so terrible exactly? On the surface, it's all down to Eli Roth and someone called either Joe Crombie or Joe Abercrombie, depending on where you look. Many assumed this was the pen name of Craig Mazin, the writer-director who helped lead audiences into the golden age of video game adaptations with The Last of Us, and who was previously attached to Borderlands as a writer. However, Mazin cryptically but firmly denied his involvement, telling Variety, "I did not use a pseudonym. If the name in question is indeed a pseudonym, all I can say is, it's not mine." When you look into it further, it seems to be a case of too many chefs spoiling the broth. The end product appears to be a hodgepodge of ideas from several writers who came and went during the years the film spent in developmental hell. Aaron Berg and Oren Uziel were both hired as writers early in development, but weren't around by the time Roth and Mazin got involved in 2020. Bullet Train scribe Zach Olkovich was hired during reshoots. Even Euphoria creator Sam Levinson received an additional literary materials credit, as did Berg, Uziel, Olkovich, Chris Bremner, Jewel Taylor, and Tony Rettenmeyer. That's a lot of writers for one movie. Another reason that Borderlands failed so miserably is that its director exited the project before it was fully completed. This isn't entirely Eli Roth's fault, as Borderlands suffered through setbacks at all stages of production, including post. Roth wrapped filming all the way back in June 2021, after which his attention began shifting towards his next project, 2023's Thanksgiving, a slasher flick which wound up being his most lauded directorial effort to date. In January 2023, word began to spread that Roth had been fired from Borderlands during post-production and was being replaced by Deadpool director Tim Miller. In reality, Roth was merely unable to return for a late set of reshoots scheduled 18 months after he'd originally wrapped, as he was preparing to shoot Thanksgiving. Even so, the fact remains that Miller had to effectively finish the movie for Roth, while the latter director was entirely preoccupied with another project.
I want people to go, that is the best time I've had in a movie theater in years.
It's worth noting that Roth wasn't the only one to move beyond Borderlands before reshoots began. Ariana Greenblatt filmed her breakout role in Barbie during this time, and most notably, Cate Blanchett shot Tar, the psychological drama film that earned her an Academy Award nomination. The fact that the film made it across the finish line after the cast and crew had dispersed in so many different directions and for so long is a minor miracle, but it didn't help when it came to box office haul. As it currently stands, Borderlands will have no impact beyond a bruise on the game's brand and a place in the ever-growing pile of movies that make the case against video game movies. Even as shows like Fallout, Halo, The Last of Us, Twisted Metal, Cyberpunk, Edge Runners, and even to some extent Netflix's The Witcher have proven that it is possible to translate these beloved works to a traditional narrative medium, movies continue to be an issue. We've arguably yet to see an adult video game film adaptation that is widely considered to be a success. Borderlands joins the ranks of recent duds like Five Nights at Freddy's, Uncharted, Mortal Kombat, and Monster Hunter, all of which received harsh reviews when they debuted. Family features like the Super Mario Bros. Movie, Sonic the Hedgehog, and Detective Pikachu have fared a little better, but on the whole, films like Borderlands hurt the public perception of video game movies. If it's possible to see an adult-oriented video game adaptation in the future, Borderlands certainly didn't make a strong case for the possibility.